Oscar nominations were just announced, and Hollywood's doing what it does best, congratulating itself. The question is, does anyone outside of Hollywood actually care anymore? Here to discuss all of this and share his picks for the best and worst of 2025, film critic, podcaster, and keeper of HollywoodInToto.com, Christian Toto. Christian, thanks for being here. Look, we've been covering this for so many years, ever since audiences really got used to staying home during COVID. I know people who haven't been in a movie theater since 2020. But it seems Hollywood keeps making movies for critics and award voters and not for the people that once bought tickets.
Yeah, it's a real problem with the Oscars because, back in the day, the Best Picture winner would be a movie that everyone saw. And too often now, it's a movie that no one saw. And you look at the top 10 list of Best Picture nominees, and it's a bunch of head scratchers for most people. And this is the work I cover, so I know these titles, but a lot of people don't. And that's a problem for sure. Listen, you don't want to give the Best Picture honors to the most profitable movie, Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Best Picture, you don't want to go there, but there's got to be some sort of medium where you get the people and the critics in line, and it's just not the case anymore.
Wow. Yeah, Robert Davi was on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and he's a Academy voter. His concern is you're allowing foreign films to qualify for Best Picture, edging out American films that, this is their moment. Are there too many candidates for Best Film now?
Well, it's an interesting observation. I love Robert Davi, and he knows what he's talking about. And there has been more of an emphasis on giving international films more prestige, more spotlight in the Oscars, and often winning the biggest prize. So he's partially right for sure. But I think the bigger issue is that there's just a disconnect with the public as far as the movies being made. A lot of these films, listen, they're well crafted, they're interesting, they're smart. I don't want to dismiss them. But it's niche programming in a sense. One of the rare films that doesn't fall into that category is F1. It was a wonderful movie came out last year. Brad Pitt. It's the kind of movie that has that Top Gun Maverick spirit, in part because the same director did it. But, those are the kind of movies that are the aberrations. They're the exceptions right now. It's more like Sentimental Value, which is a very good film, but, no one saw it. No one saw it.
Was F1 nominated for Best Picture?
Yes, it was. Surprisingly so.
So it made the cut.
Yeah, barely, I'm sure. Listen, it has no chance of winning, but the fact that it was in the top 10, it's something, I guess.
Yeah, but 10. I mean, you're picking one of 10. It used to be like 4. Now it's 10. It's just, and again, it's like 9 movies no one's ever heard of. But we heard a lot about these 4-quadrant blockbusters that were supposed to bring everybody back to the theater, male and female, and over 25, under 25. Do you think we'll ever see the E.T. or Star Wars numbers again that has that much cultural impact? Or has the entire market just splintered into pieces?
I'm pretty cynical about that era coming back to where it once was. Maybe Lord of the Rings, the last film which won Best Picture, was a good example of a film that kind of, checked all those boxes. I don't think we're going to see many movies like that moving forward. Hollywood is good at the big noisy blockbusters, and that's perfectly fine, and that there's a place for them. But then they don't make these other great movies that really speak to the human condition. And the perfect example is One Battle After Another. It's the Leonardo DiCaprio movie. It's the likely Best Picture winner. And while it's well crafted and well acted, it's morally repugnant. And I don't really say that loosely. It's a story that basically takes Antifa-like groups' side against the U.S. government. They're the good guys. So how can you even meet Hollywood halfway if that's what's going on?
Yeah. No, I found it and watched. I think I made it through 20 minutes of that movie, and it was just, I agree with you, it was morally repugnant, and the storyline was just ugly. The character, these are not people I wanted to spend an evening with or even an hour and a half. The Oscar nominations came out, and Ryan Coogler's Sinners got a record-breaking 16 nominations. It's an African-American vampire flick. That's more, by the way, than Titanic and La La Land. Your take on that movie, or is this worthy of that nomination, or is this Hollywood falling in love with its own reflection again?
It's a little bit of everything. It is a very good film. Ryan Coogler's a super talented director. He really reinvents the vampire genre. Much of the movie is about culture and racism, but it's not really lecturing us until the very end. There's a kind of a unfortunate scene. So I think it's worthy of the honor itself, but 60 nominations. I mean, it's the most of all time. It is not one of the greatest films of all time. So there's a disconnect there. But it is a good film, and I think it's worthy of the nominations for the most part. And also, a lot of people saw it and liked it. The word of mouth was big. It would grow week after week. So it wasn't just a critical darling. It's a rare film where audiences really savored it as well.
Yeah. What was your favorite movie of 2025?
I have two. One is another horror movie called Weapons. I thought it was really beautifully assembled. It was different. It was scary. It was intriguing. But I loved Marty Supreme with Timothée Chalamet. Listen, I grew up in New York, so maybe some of the New York reflections echoed with me. But it just felt brimming with imagination and insight and humor. And it was novel. And, you know, the main character is very unlikable. But Chalamet's performance is so charismatic, you can't help rooting for him, even though he does bad thing after bad thing after bad thing. But there is some character growth in there as well.
Yeah, no, he's a slippery kind of, oily character, and you're like, oh, this guy. But you end up pulling for him. But I don't want to ruin it for people. But the opening of the movie and that beautiful reveal at the end, the big character payoff at the end, is worth the price of admission. I'll say this, I found it to be a very life-affirming movie, which is a rarity when you go to the films today.
Yeah, and Chalamet's a force of nature. He picks his films well. He's at the top of his game. I think he will win Best Actor this year. He was terrific in the Bob Dylan movie from a year or two ago. So I think it's a movie worth celebrating. It's made 80, 90 million US box office. That's pretty good too. It's connecting.
Yeah. Let's talk about faith-based movies, family films. There was a time when you had a lot of this product. You and I have discussed this before. There's clearly an audience for these movies. I know Mel Gibson is working on his Resurrection, his Passion sequel. I'm sure that'll be a huge movie in 2027. But in a report released this week, the 2026 Faith and Entertainment Index reveals 92% of respondents, 92%, said faith has a role to play in modern entertainment. 77% said faith can have broad appeal, and 58% said faith-based content is more appealing to them. What should we read into these numbers?
Well, there's a market out there that's not being tapped. For sure, I think Angel Studios is doing a fine job of reaching out to that community. But the bottom line is that it shouldn't be, I think people even reject the whole faith-based label. You know, all of our lives, the things we do, the places we go, the friends we have, faith is a part of all that. It's the fabric of our culture. So when you make movies and you ignore it entirely, it's almost a weird, like, wait, that's not right. That's not the world we live in. So I think that's part of it too. And I think that Hollywood is getting the sense that this is a marketable genre in a way, or that it does connect with people, and that you're getting bigger actors who are signing on to projects. It used to be unknown actors, no-name actors, actors whose careers have crashed. Now you'll see a lot of famous names in projects that speak directly to faith.
Yeah, and that David movie was a big hit this year, and there's certainly others. Okay, give me your worst films for 2025. What did you absolutely loathe?
I'll give you two. One, it's shocking because Robert De Niro, gangster movie, it's like almost gold. Yeah, how could you miss? But The Alto Knights from last year, missed by a mile. He plays two characters in the film. They're not brothers. It makes no sense. It's a terrible, boring, misbegotten movie. I can't believe it exists, and it's just the worst.
It's
So
scary. It's downright
one.
scary because there's very little character demarcation. When you look at them, they look like the same person. One's got glasses, the other got a hat. But it's like me talking to myself. It was absurd. Really, I agree with you on that one. Okay, what was your other stinker?
Yeah, that was distracting to say the least. Other one, I feel a little badly picking on it. Mickey 17, science fiction film, blazingly original. It's got some things to say about the culture, certainly from a left of center perspective, but that's okay. You want to be ambitious, you want to kind of embed messages in a story. I'm perfectly fine with that. But it just was a slog to get through. Robert Pattinson's a good actor, not his fault at all, but just didn't have anywhere to go. And it's one of those films like watching it, I'm thinking, please let this be over soon, but it kept going on and on.
Yeah. Christian, your prediction for where the industry is headed now, in the next 5 years or so, what do you see both in terms of what Hollywood, or what was once Hollywood, will be producing, and what impact do you think the increasing streaming world will have? I mean, now you've got James Bond, at Amazon.
Yeah, my crystal ball is pretty fuzzy just because there's so much change going on culturally, technologically speaking as well. I think if Hollywood really course corrects and listens to the audience, there could be brighter days ahead. I don't see that right now. I've seen minor flourishes where, I think the woke storytelling is starting to ebb away. That's a good sign. That's the industry realizing this is not selling to the public. But I think that the mid-sized movie is really in trouble. You're going to see those movies go on Netflix and Prime Video, and you're going to see a lot of smaller films and big budget films really dominating the marketplace. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But then the rise of AI may give all this technology to the everyman, and then he or she could tell stories that are really impactful and just bypass all the gatekeepers. That could be the sleeper of what we're going to look at in the next 5 years.
Well, one of the most exciting things I see is family entertainment without agenda seems to be coming back to the fore. You saw Disney with Zootopia 2. They seem to have returned to, or trying to return to, kind of the center of family entertainment. I guess they got a memo after all the bombs and stinkers of Snow White, etc.
I agree. And, I think you mentioned a couple of films. Inside Out 2 as well was wildly successful.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Disney got the message. It took a while, took a lot of lumps, made a lot of bad movies, but they finally realized you just can't put this kind of lecture-filled, inappropriate material in kids' films. You think that's like business 101, but they had to take a few years and a few massive flops to understand what's going on. So they got the message, and other people in Hollywood have as well. But it's a slow learning industry. We saw during the George Bush years that anti-war film after anti-war film after anti-war film flopped in major fashion, and then finally they stopped making them. Finally, but they don't take notes, they don't listen, and sometimes they have to learn the hard way.
Well, they listen to themselves. I expect to see a lot of ice buttons and hear and watch clips that none of us have ever seen, or with people that none of us have ever seen. I mean, I was watching the Golden Globes. I didn't know. I would say 3/4 of these people I've never seen in my life before, and I actually go to the movies like twice a month. I'm in a theater.
Yeah, it's the new normal. I mean, the movie stars of yore are getting older. Denzel Washington, Harrison Ford, they can't last forever, sadly. And the new crop, they're interchangeable. And when they get really political and, more importantly, really nasty, all of a sudden, that movie star aura just goes away. It's just not there anymore. And some of this is not their fault. It's the culture. It's the overexposure. I get that. But, the anger and the antipathy, it's towards us, towards the average viewers. Not good. Not good for the industry and not good for movies.
These red carpet reporters baiting them with these political questions. It's like asking me about the stock market, or how do you remove a goiter? Well, what do I know? This is way outside my area of competency. Stick to the movie and the entertainment industry. I'll give you the last word.
Couldn't agree more. It's a great point. It's the journalist's fault partly. That's not really why they're there. But you know what? The journalist wants the message they're going to get to be plastered all over the world. And they can't say it directly, but they can ask an actor who's hard left of center to do the honors. They do the honors. They get lots of publicity. Just how the system works.
Well, Patrick Wilson this week was on a red carpet for some movie, and he said, you know what? Nobody's interested in what I think. Nobody's interested in my perspective, and that's not why I'm here. I loved that answer. He's suddenly my favorite actor this week. Christian, we'll leave it there. You can follow Christian's always insightful movie reviews and commentary at HollywoodInToto.com. Christian, come back soon.
Will do. Thanks.